Welcome back, everybody, to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde. As always, we've got John Rauhaus playing in the background. The big news around here, our 57th issue is going to be mailing to everybody in the next week or so. So if by some odd chance you've been listening to this podcast every week, if you enjoy the content you hear day in and day out, please subscribe to the thing that powers it all, the Fretboard Journal print magazine. It's where we have the most fun and freedom sharing guitar stories you are not going to read about anywhere else. And this new issue is full of them. So please join us at fretboardjournal.com. We just had our 2025 Fretboard Summit. I have so much content from it to share with you all. I'm going to take a little break just to catch up on interviews with artists who weren't at the summit for a while. But for this week's podcast, I want to share another favorite session that took place at this year's summit. I'll be honest, sometimes I really struggle with how to describe some of these sessions. I know that they are going to be magical. I know that if you pair certain musicians with other musicians, it's just going to be great. But I'm not proud that I just called the session you are about to hear something to the effect of like LA Session Guitar Greats. I should be able to do better than that. I've been an editor and a publisher for a long time now. But regardless, since we had this embarrassment of riches and three of the greatest guitar players in Los Angeles converging on the summit, they played actually on Saturday night, I wanted to interview them about what it was like to work in studios in 2025, how they found their way to LA, some of the memorable recordings that these three individuals have been on. They are three of the most inspiring guitarists of any ilk that I know, and I was just really proud and happy to get them at our summit. So we're talking to the original Fretboard Journal employee, Ryan Richter, who's gone on to play with Dijon and Lizzy McAlpine and so many others. Ryan has a record called As Good a Place as Any. Hopefully you know about that. It's a one-track, incredible album. I don't know what to describe it as. It's a movement. Go check that out on any of your favorite streaming platforms. We also had Harrison Whitford on stage. Harrison plays with Phoebe Bridgers and so many others, but he also has a record called Afraid of Nothing that is truly remarkable from a few years ago. We talk about that. And then we had Dylan Day, the incredible Dylan Day, who I think wowed everybody who heard him play at the summit all weekend long. Dylan has a forthcoming instrumental acoustic record called The Unanswered Prayer. This one is not out yet, but when it does come out, I encourage you all to dive into it. Just follow Dylan Day on Instagram. You'll learn about it when it comes out. So I had three of these incredible individuals on stage, and I wanted to just hear their stories. I wanted to hear about what they bring into a studio gear-wise, in terms of both for their solo recordings as well as for some of these more popular songs that they're appearing on. And I wanted to explore the idea of if there is a LA guitar sound in 2025. I know for a while there it was all rubber bridge guitars, thanks to our friend Ruben Cox. Wanted to hear about what's going on these days and what the producers are asking for. What ended up happening was an hour-long chat with three of the most introspective and talented guitarists I am lucky enough to know, and I hope you enjoy it. As always, our podcast is brought to you by a handful of brands who love what we do and love to hear from all of you. First up is Peghead Nation. You can get your first month free or $20 off an annual subscription at Peghead Nation by using the discount code Fretboard. If you don't know it, Peghead Nation is one of the great online instruction portals. So if you want to be a better bluegrass player or Americana player or jazz or anything in between, go check them out. So many great Peghead Nation instructors have written for us or been in the pages of our magazine. It's just a cool fit. We are also brought to you by Stringjoy Strings. They're making guitar strings, acoustic and electric, mandolin and banjo strings, and I know they may not be the biggest player in the string space just yet, but everybody I know who has tried them out has been swearing by them, myself included. You can get 10% off of your first order by using the discount code Fretboard when you go to stringjoy.com. We are last but definitely not least brought to you by our friends at Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar here in Seattle, Washington. Now, I am sitting in my office at the Fretboard Journal in Ballard, Washington, and Mike and Mike's is maybe, I don't know, a 10-minute drive at most. They're in the Fremont neighborhood, and it is just this incredibly cool store with multiple rooms. filled with great guitars, amps, synths, you name it. And then there's a full service repair and restoration shop literally right next door to their store. Go to mmguitarbar.com, read up on them, see their inventory online. If you're ever in Seattle, come say hello to them, and then maybe come say hello to me. So those are the big announcements, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you are kicking yourself for not being at this year's Fretboard Summit, let me just tell you that we're doing it again, August 20th to 22nd. Thursday to Saturday of 2026, we will be having our 5th Chicago Fretboard Summit at the Old Town School of Folk Music. I could not be happier that we have this home for it in one of the coolest cities in the world and at one of the coolest venues that I've ever stepped foot in. So mark your calendars for that. Start telling your family, friends, and loved ones that you are finally going to be attending this thing. Hit me up if you ever have any questions, podcast@fretboardjournal.com. And without further delay, here are Dylan Day, Harrison Whitford, and Ryan Richter talking about what it's like to be a working session musician and so much more in Los Angeles in 2025. I hope you love it. You guys are in for a treat, both with this session and hopefully you all know that these guys are all playing across the street tonight, and it's going to blow minds and really be a rare opportunity to see 3 incredibly talented people, perform in a setting outside of their home, outside of a recording studio, performing some truly incredible music. I know even when I throw a guitar festival, there's sort of this like gravity towards hiring legacy artists and like tried and true people. I think what's super exciting about Ryan, Dylan, and Harrison here is that they are doing really interesting things with guitar on music that is wildly popular and that is shaping how others make music. It might be music your kids are listening to, and they're doing the same sort of innovative, oftentimes weird, esoteric, exploratory things on the instrument that, when people reminisce about Ry Cooder or David Lindley or some of the great session people from the 60s and 70s, they're doing it now on music that's being played and downloaded sometimes millions of times. So before we get into the weeds on like what it's like to be doing all this, like I'd love for you each to just introduce yourselves and maybe talk about some of the records that we may have heard you on or records that you're just most proud of, and then we'll go down from there.
Cool. I'm Harrison Whitford. I've been living in Los Angeles for about 10 years now, and probably the records people would be most familiar with that I've played on are a couple albums by an artist named Phoebe Bridgers, records by Matt Berninger, Noah Gunderson, and then, a bunch of others. But yeah.
I'm Dylan Day. I'm from Fletcher, Vermont, living in Los Angeles right now. And as far as session work and studio work, music by Amos Lee, music by Selena Gomez and Ed Sheeran in the last couple of years. I wouldn't quite call it session work because it's something that's very dear to me, but I play in a group with a great artist and singer-songwriter named Rocco DeLuca, who's a fantastic guitarist too, and a lifer. Stuff like
Ryan Richter. I also have been living in LA for a little bit over 10 years. As many of you know, I spent a lot of time with Jason in Seattle. I'll have a return to that idea, the Seattle versus LA productivity pipeline. But recently I have been lucky enough to work on music by an artist named Lizzy McAlpine and an artist named Dijon. And I think we can all agree. I'm not trying to pad myself out or anything, but we're lucky enough to work a good bit where some of these things kind of glaze over, and I forget a lot of the stuff that I've done. I'm often surprised when I'm reminded by it. But Lizzy and Dijon have taken up a bunch of my time in the past couple of years.
You came, Ryan, from Southern California. Did you guys come from Southern California?
I'm from Massachusetts originally, and so I lived on the East Coast till I was about like 16, 17, and then lived in Nashville. But no, I moved to LA when I was like 22, 21.
You're Vermont.
Rural Vermont, yeah.
So what made you make that leap? Like, was that a risk, or was it like, you know what, I already know I'm going to have all these things lined up?
I was working at Riverberry Farm in Fairfax, Vermont, and my girlfriend at the time was in college in LA, and I had $14, and I went and stayed at her dorm with her.
Amazing.
And I started calling people and showing up at their houses and taking the bus to their studios and knocking on the door, pretty much. A little tongue-in-cheek, but not that tongue-in-cheek.
I mean, let's expand on that. Like, you had an acoustic guitar, an electric, like.
I had a black ladder brace Waterloo that is now sold to someone who uses it kind of prolifically and visibly in town. My friend Emily Elbert was on tour, I think, with Esperanza Spalding. And within the first couple months of crashing around LA, she let me sublet her place. And she was gone for a couple months at a time, and it was just one thing to another. For a couple of years, I kind of lived like that.
Incredible. What about you?
I was living in Nashville before I moved to LA, and I met Phoebe Bridgers in Nashville, actually, and she was kind of the person that brought me to LA. I would go out there and work on music with her, and I mean, I come from my father's a musician, and so there was like a lot of music around my life growing up, but yeah, like I just kept going out to LA and really sort of liking the musical culture, I suppose, and the guitar culture for sure. And there was something different happening there as opposed to what was happening around me in Nashville. And there was definitely a drive to kind of like go and soak that up and get pushed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I also like really loved Phoebe's songs, and I'm a songwriter, and so there was that pull too of just wanting to be near these like great songs that were happening.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about you guys collaborating with songwriters, but you also, Dylan, it's coming, right? Solo album. You guys
Soon.
both, yeah.
Soon. Hopefully before 2026.
Yeah.
Hopefully before Christmas. Yeah.
And Harrison, yours came out like 5 years ago. It's still available, and Ryan as well. The one track wonder.
One track wonder. We're going to follow it up with another one track wonder later this year. It's going to be a little different, but it's also going to be very much the same in a way that I know that you're going to love.
I love it. Yeah, so you'll be able to hear some of that in Zold tonight. Who were your big influences? Like, you know, I hear so much. I think the other thing that's really cool about all three of you is just like, you're on the younger end, at least for the Fretboard Journal side, you know, typical demographic, and you all seem to have this like profound love for acoustic music. And so I'd love to just hear who your big North Stars are.
To this day, I mean, I'm basically only listening to like Skip James right now, in terms of music that's made on the guitar. Growing up, I liked all the Delta music a lot. I liked music that was able to be played by one person, where the whole cell of music was happening, the whole little orchestra in one person's hand. But as far as 60s music or electric music, Duane Allman's attitude and his sound like hit me over the head like crazy when I was a 12 or 13-year-old. And just the whole story and the way that he lived his life, it seemed, was very inspiring to me. And like the fact that there was this very passionate element that was almost like beyond, I don't know, it's just his attitude was so in the playing that was like a huge influence. But I like now, I just really like, I like orchestral or music that is, I guess, a kind of big picture. I like writers. I like Duke Ellington. I like Detroit gospel a lot. I like Thomas Whitfield, the writer out of Detroit. And I guess like miniatures, people that make little origamis out of music, you know, writing. And So if there's a way to do that on a single source instrument, that's kind of what's brought me back to Delta music, because I feel like a lot of those people have, and of course in music that was pre-Delta music as well. But yeah, the early American music is like everything that Charlie Hunter was talking about yesterday. Yeah. Is kind of right where my head's at again. You know,
It doesn't get old.
it's perfect.
I grew up, my dad was a bluegrass guitarist and a fan, and he really made, you know, I mean, I don't know if it was for my benefit directly, but like his CD changer in the car was full of lots of the Rounder record catalog, and, you know, I'm pretty sure I was the only person maybe in San Diego besides Chris Thiele that like knew or like had access to those early Jerry Douglas records, Changing Channels and Under the Wire and all that stuff. When I was 12, my parents took me to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and I saw, I'm sure many of you know, the kind of like super group called Strength in Numbers, or maybe you don't, but if you do, you know what that is. But I saw Bela Fleck, and I was in tune with guitar playing at that time, but I just felt like I knew what he was going for, and I think that the kind of guitar playing that I'm drawn to is fairly ornate. Not in that it's like, I don't think of it as being like showy or acrobatic or anything like that, but I do think that it's assembled in kind of like it's pretty busy, and whatever that is, I'm realizing as the years go on, like I think that Bela Fleck is actually my favorite guitar player, even though he's obviously not a guitar player, but that's like just what, you know, I like other things too. I like Bill Frisell, and I love Ry Cooder, and I love all these guys that do influence me, but I think like I got used to the idea, kind of like what Dylan was saying, like there's so much possibility rhythmically and melodically in a banjo that the more I look back at my own development, I'm realizing I'm kind of chasing his thing. And especially that when I heard the record Uncommon Ritual, it just was clear to me that like that was the kind of distillation of what I thought I could do with music. That's it.
Yeah.
For now.
I think my earliest kind of introduction to loving music was through like punk music, albeit more kind of like maybe commercial leanings punk music, like the Clash and the Sex Pistols and the Dead Kennedys, and then when I started playing music and becoming guitar obsessed as a kid and discovering Hendrix and Jeff Beck, those were definitely like pillars of my childhood. And then, you know, like discovering, you know, Bob Dylan and Neil Young and Jackson Browne and Leonard Cohen when I was very young, and that like got me interested in songwriting. But like, if anything, I guess if I chase a thread throughout time of kind of all the stuff I love, there's like a reverence that ties it all together, I think. But yeah, I mean, there's so much music I feel influenced by like every day, you know.
When I asked you who you are most proud to have collaborated with, you threw out, all of three of you, some pretty heavy-hitting names. Are you also getting calls from artists where you're like, I'm not feeling comfortable with this? I don't like this?
Meaning quality-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just vibe-wise.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it just is true. Sometimes you get called in to do something that's not what you're after, but, you know, the satisfaction truly lies within being able to like make someone happy with what you inherently are drawn to do. That's my opinion. Like if I can put my stamp on anything and someone feels more at ease with what they're making in their own life, it's pretty cool, you know? And I'm not saying like, you know, things aren't roundly horrible, but like, I just feel good about that thing. Going in somewhere, having it feel a little dicey, and then leaving and it feels more, something, as long as you leave a place and it feels more settled, that's satisfying.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, like, in the music industry, there's always this tendency to like find, even though he just put out his second record, the next Dijon or the next Phoebe Bridgers or whatever. And I'm assuming if there are still record label suits, they're like, well, let's just bring the ingredients from that album to this next person we're trying to champion. Does that happen a lot?
Well, I mean, in my case, it happened verbatim. I was playing with Harrison and Dylan, and I have a friend named Mason. Mason put together a band. We supported an artist named Ryan Beatty.
Yeah.
We played a show in LA. Lizzy McAlpine was in the audience, saw the show, had her people call us. And then the next thing you know, we made her most recent record with her, and then also toured with her, every single person on the stage for a year. So, I mean, I can't think of a more direct affirmation of what you're asking.
Yeah.
That's the realest it's ever been in my life. I know that I definitely, just to like, you mentioned Dijon, like I know of, because I'm addicted to the internet, like I can see that there is a huge wave of people that are really trying to sound like Dijon and have been for quite some time. And specifically people that have been moved by the contributions that Mike Gordon, AKA McGee, has made to guitar. Like a lot of people are just doing their darndest to sound exactly like them. I don't think that's a top-down decision. I just think it's like, it's pretty undeniable at this point.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because, what was it, last week JHS released a pedal emulating the 4-track that he most noteworthy uses.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Mike wouldn't call himself the originator of that technique by any means, but I think it is also the case that it's the correlation is direct enough where I think people broke the pedal open, and on the circuit board it says McGee made me do it. I think that's true.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a thing. People are into it.
Yeah.
And if anyone has not seen it, Ryan graciously, right before he went on stage with Dijon in Seattle, let us film the entire Dijon backing band. And so we have one of the rare glimpses into what
the only one, as far as I know.
Yeah. A rather complicated setup to make that show happen.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, is there an LA sound? Because, I mean, there's these little things like Reuben Cox at Old Style Guitars made the rubber bridge guitars, and then a whole bunch of people decided they were going to try to copy that sound. Is there an LA sound, or is it just you guys all trying a lot of little things? And
I'm sorry to talk so much. I think 5-6 years ago, I think there absolutely was an LA sound, and I think it was the sound of, a rubber bridge and a VB2, something like that. Now, I don't know if I hear it as specifically. I think there was a time where we were all hearing people dipping their brush into a very similar palette, which is cool, I guess. But like, there was a time where that was a thing. And also because of Blake's influence, a lot of people bought a lot of really expensive gear to try to like figure his thing out. So there were lots of people playing Austin Hooks amps and, externalized reverb units and all that stuff. Dylan is shaking his head out of disgust, but I'll tell you what, actually, this is a good corollary. Dylan is someone who I've been a huge fan of his playing. I think I got on the ground floor of that years ago. Is that true? Like when we first met, we've known each other for like 10 years now. Insane. Anyway, when we met, Dylan was playing electric guitar more so, and was also famously playing a PV Bandit that he found like in the dirt at our friend's studio amp shop. And, like everyone else, you go through your own periods of growth, and he was a guy that would like, use devices. And as the time has gone on, he stripped it all away. And for me, that is a really cool thing of the LA sound now, is that people like Dylan are reminding everybody that you can really figure out who you are by getting rid of all the distractions. And so these last year I've been on tour a bunch, and I literally had to have pedals for my job. But when I got back, I just sold them all because like, I don't really get a lot of joy in having my sound be, or as far as like me plugging into a guitar amplifier, like I've come to go back to this kind of bedrock thing where like, I just want it to be what's going on with my instrument in my hands. And I think a lot of people are riding that wave specifically because Dylan is leading the way back. No, I think it's true. Dylan is playing, I'll let you talk about it, but like your journey is amazing. Yeah.
I have a lot to say about all of it, and some of it can sound kind of trite, I'm sure, but like the way that I've always considered it was that I have a relationship with music, and I have a relationship with a set of ethics of musical taste that is a lifetime journey and is what I'm going to just be chipping away at from here on out, however long that is for me. And I fear that I've maybe lost work over it, but every time that I double down on the things that are melodically important to me or important from an arrangement decision, and I'm, I guess, stubborn about them, even if one door closes, I feel like what is on the other side of that is closer to where I'm useful and closer to something that my heart's in. And the boat has risen in my life slowly in that way, but it always feels scary. It always feels like I might let someone down, but I fear sometimes that I'm not a very professional person in that way. It's more like it's kind of an act of faith. Again, if that sounds too trite, forgive me, but it's like I really am just developing a vision that I have for maybe an attitude of playing or the mechanics of music that I think there is still places to get into and have taste for, and make decisions about, new decisions. And I would call myself a purist at this point, and I no longer think that's corny or shameful or even snobby. I think that you can make incredibly modern statements with incredibly pure delivery. And to me, that is actually an incredibly futuristic idea and a very modern idea, and one of the last places to go. That kind of Spartan display of tone, or that Spartan simple display of melody or harmony or even lyric, is the most modern thing I hear anymore, because I've been faced with like the wash of confetti for so long. And I say that knowing that it's truly not disrespectful. I know that I'm talking about my own taste. Sure. Because, and I'm nobody. Like I don't, like not a lot of people even know what I do, so I don't think there's any glory in it. It's just really just my honest journey. And I know that I'm not speaking ill on it. I'm just saying that's just to kind of give you maybe the headspace of, I don't think that it's referential or throwback or old-fashioned to play without to strip things away.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm coming from. And I think when you do strip things away, you're forced to think about just different things, because that information has to come from somewhere for it to not be boring, but it just isn't coming from production techniques. That's where,
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that's like off. I feels like dirty to talk about because it's like sounds snobby or something.
No. I think
and it's not. It's just like,
yeah.
Sorry.
I think every guitarist in this room is going to kill me if I don't ask the follow-up question then, which is like, where are you at least right now in 2025? Like, what is the guitar? What is the setup that brings you the joy and makes you feel like you're making the purest statement?
I've been rolling into every room I get invited to with a 1948 LG2 that I got on a horse trade with a friend of mine. I traded him a guitar for it. And if I have to plug it in, I use a passive magnetic pickup, and I'll maybe go DI and mess with a Pultec and roll the top off to get a sound more like when I played a Les Paul a lot. Or if I'm playing with a band live, I'll then plug it into a PV pedal steel amp. And I just keep it real pure. And also, if you do find yourself in a situation where you're working with, that's an incredibly modern sound too, because all of a sudden you put like a contact pickup taped to an LG2 and run it through a Leslie on like an Ethan Grusko Ryan Beatty record, and then put the pickup into an LA2A and a Pultec and hit a H3000. I've never heard a pedal that sounds as crazy as those 4 channels combined in a studio. That's like, you know what I mean? So it's immediately it's like that's what Jimmy and Eddie Kramer would have been doing to me. All of a sudden the whole studio is your pedal board, because you got just this really pure sound on the end of a 1/4-inch cable.
When you did that trade, did you know that guitar was going to be the one?
No, it was actually the dog too. No one wanted it. That's why my good friend Paul,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it was it needed fret work. I live with a fantastic luthier who should be discussed, a guy named Pavel Maslovic, who's a great person and a great luthier among many things, and he has slowly patched the guitar up for me. I played at the Ford Theater with Willie Watson a couple of years ago, and the back opened up on it in the sun, and we had to close that up, and then he refretted it, put nice big frets, and had to shim the nut, and we just had to front porch the bridge. I just had to add some more bone to the bridge to make it play in tune. But it's really good now, though.
Yeah,
it's like perfect.
To speak to that guitar, just because I know
because he has the guitar that everyone preferred. It was at the same studio.
Well, it was at the same studio, and everyone would always ask to borrow. I have a B25. I don't know what year it is. I've never been able to date it, but there was this LG2 at the studio that nobody liked. But I feel like maybe to not truthfully in a metaphysical way, but somewhat, like, just then Dylan got this guitar and just put like energy into it. Like, put a lot of effort and love into it, and it became an amazing instrument, which, again, just goes to show that like any instrument with enough will can be brought there.
It's really good. It's like special.
I mean, that was going to be my follow-up. Could you have done all that, the pickup setup with like your old Waterloo and gotten the same results? But it sounds like this one is special.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would. Yeah. Because this guitar will have its life too.
Yeah.
It'll get stolen, or it'll be too old to play, or
Yeah.
And I think at this point in my life, that is the geometry of an instrument I like. I really feel comfortable on a Gibson, on a mid-size or small-body Gibson. Okay. I love a lot of guitars, but that's the part of it where it's like, that scale length and everything. I play a lot of bottleneck, and that works for me, and it sounds kind of like the frequency range that I like. So that aspect is here to stay.
Harrison, what are you currently playing the most?
I have a Les Paul that is like a custom shop Les Paul that I bring to lots of sessions, but also something that I do quite enjoy about living in LA is how frequently I can roll up to scenarios with next to nothing and pretty much count on all these different studio owners to have like a smattering of great gear that I just get to use for the day. And so I don't acquire a lot of gear. Like I have a handful of guitars and I play all of them. But yeah, I mean, like, of my own, a Les Paul and a Telecaster that I've had for nearly like 13, 14 years. But otherwise I'm like if I roll in and I don't have to unpack anything, like, that's kind of my favorite place to live, is just use what's there.
Yeah.
Well, it's also the case too that a lot of time, just like the energy that's in that situation too, is like the best gear is other people's gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't really want a lot of stuff that they have, but when I'm there, it's like, for those
you're
5
playing
hours,
it fresh too. It's you get to roll in and be surprised by it, and it's
new.
Then the arc is the same for me every time. It's like, I go to a studio, they have a guitar that I have never thought about having. I use it. I love it. We're listening back. I'm on the couch looking at reverb, looking for the guitar. And then by the time I leave, I'm like, we already got divorced in my mind.
I kind of have, everything we're talking about, it's kind of making me encapsulate. I think the idea of session musicians is, at least in my relationship with it, and maybe if you take the way that the three of us are involved in those sorts of rooms, and the other friends of ours are great musicians, we're not the only three people that seem to do that sort of thing in that town. The way that music is being made right now, and maybe how much music is being made right now, and the taste of people in modern music, I think the idea maybe of what a session musician is, or what they bring to the table, might be very different than what Lloyd Green was doing, playing on 1 million records a year in Nashville in the 70s, which I have a romantic idea about. And that's a type of excellence that I would love to have witnessed in some way. The world is different now, but I think a lot of times people get invited to rooms to be creative in a different way, in a way where it's just like the idea of collaboration is changing too. And of course, the waters get muddy in terms of maybe writing or in terms of maybe what even is called production anymore. And I don't want to talk too much on that, but like we've all pulled a lot of weight in a lot of different directions just by being invited to something. And then you just do what it is that you do. And hopefully open-heartedly, hopefully you're not swinging any crazy stick in that room and you're being respectful, but like things happen and you can kind of only see in the rear view what actually went down when you have a finished product. And in a lot of times, it's like the lines between being a guitarist these are all very blurry, and you hopefully just end up in rooms where people respect you, know what you do. And I think it's this sort of thing now is just more about being part of a community or a culture or having relationships with people that are working and understand the ethos of what you do. And I guess another thing, like a lot of times someone will put a bass in my hand too. It's like I'm kind of building like whole tracks sometimes. It's not just like, oh, I come to play guitar for 2 hours and play like this. It's like, it's like, I don't even know what you call this anymore. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, we're hanging. You want some lunch? And it's just, by the time you leave, you're like, well, we made a record this month, and it might come out. And then it's like, what was that? And it's all this, I don't know if that's a rambling, but you must know what I'm.
No, I know exactly what you mean. And I identify with that too. I also want to say, like, just regarding our lives in LA, I think we all it's one of 2 places in the US where it's happening, in my opinion. Like, you can be, like, we are lucky people. Like, we really go for months on end with being busy somehow and paying the bills. And it's a miracle. The other place being Nashville. And I think the approach that, like Dylan is saying, I think it would have to be a different thing. Maybe not like super black and white, but like, yeah, I don't know what point I'm trying to make, but I do think that the LA is busy and it's bustling, and we're thankful and lucky to be there. It's like, I don't know, it's strange. It's strange how busy people can be. I don't know what that means really, but like.
And then I don't know if I'm allowed to like talk about I won't mention what it is, but I just like played on a record sitting cross-legged on my floor with a SM57 on a pillow into my laptop for like a major, like a record, proper major label artist a couple weeks ago, and sent a WeTransfer link to someone who's working out of Electric Ladyland. And it's like, like they don't even need to know where I live to have that relationship, because also now that the internet's involved, or where I've been asked to work, I got invited to a studio in LA, the first time working with an artist, and they asked me where I needed my plane ticket from. They didn't even know. I lived in Silver Lake at the time. They were working in Malibu. They just didn't even dawn on them that I might be in town.
Yeah.
It's like such a wild era to be up in this. It's like really abstract kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know I titled this session, but I think for all 3 of you, at least with a couple of these artists you're best known for working for, like the collaboration starts way before you enter a recording studio.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear how that works with, you guys have your ideals. You obviously are friends with some like heavy hitting songwriters, singer-songwriters. Like, what does that look like? Is it different every time, or do you guys have kind of a formula for like, this person has the skeleton of an incredible song, I'm going to add my texture and color to it?
I just want to say something really fast. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but in the case of Dijon recently, we just spent, 5 months ago, the fire was under him. And it was, it was definitely time. He could tell that it was time for him to put a record out. So me and a couple guys went to the desert for 5 or 6 days, and we made a bunch of music, a lot of it very good. And the record came out 2 weeks ago. And when I left the desert, So there was a whiteboard. On the whiteboard, there were names of songs. The songs that had little lines through them were done. When I got there, none of them had lines through them. When I left, there were 7 songs that had lines through them. And I thought, okay, this is cool. Like we did it. Like we really worked hard. And also, worth mentioning that I played a lot, I don't say so myself, a lot of very good guitar on those 7 songs. And so I was thinking like, man, like I got to help be around it. Like, I really did everything that I could do. There's going to be lots of my guitar playing on this record. And then it came out and it's a completely different thing. And I'm still in it. I wrote some of the songs too, or helped write. But I just like, that's a funny thing too, that I think we all have experienced to some degree, is like, you have relationships with people. Those relationships turn into working relationships. You go into these like consolidated chunks of time with them working on a piece of art. You put a lot into it, and then, you drop the needle on it when it's time, and it's a completely different beast. And there's something really interesting about, I don't really know. I mean, I know there are other art forms, whether it's, maybe you write a book and your editor chops it up, or you working in film and they nix the last scene or something like that. But it's like, it's just funny to be a part of something that you really love and have your contribution effectively go away and still love it just as much. That's been my experience with this recent record.
I feel like, to circle back to your earlier question, which relates to what Ryan just said about like situations where maybe you don't like love whatever the work or whatever, you don't esteem the work at a place that maybe you esteem your absolute favorite shit. And my foray into like making records was with Phoebe, who was just my friend, and we like made songs together, and I loved her songwriting so much. And it was like that's like a fulfilling challenge to try and like accommodate somebody's songs that you're connected to. But then like the lesson in that for me is, in any record making premise, like regardless of my connection to it, I have to still like access that on some level. Like I can't really go into a scenario and like, it's not appropriate to go halfway on anything, even if it's something that you don't love. Like I have to sort of trick myself into loving it, or at least pulling something out of myself that I love enough that I feel accommodates it in a way that's like appropriate and meaningful. And also I feel like another way that, if I can speak for the 3 of us, that we're lucky is that we all do very different things, in the sense of we make our own music, and sometimes we're playing a bass on a session, or we're just playing guitar, or somebody wants to write a song. And that's like a really cool, beautiful thing to inhabit, because it's like sometimes you get to be your own master of everything, and sometimes your role is, I just want to answer to this person and make them happy. And sometimes it's like 2 things at once, and it's a more mutual thing. And so I feel like that, to go back to your question of like the notion of walking in and thinking like, oh, do I just add my texture, whatever that may mean? It's just different every time. But for me, the consistency is, did I leave feeling like I really put something down that person would get something emotionally from, and that I felt like I gave it everything I had.
On what you're saying, one of the things that I am sometimes, it changes from room to room and with my relationship with people, and sometimes I really just let it go. But at times I've been very, whoever has final cut on a project might change what you played. They might mute what you played, but they might also comp it into something that doesn't even sound like something you would have played in context, where they might mix it in a way where it's like, either it just changes the way that you perceived it in the music. And that is one of the things that sometimes I do. I just choose when I'm vocal about how I don't know, like when you give it up, when you let, where it's your place to where your ownership of what you played ends, right? Because if it's your whole life and you're doing this from the heart, you kind of want to shepherd it all the way to the airwaves and be like, I know exactly. But at a certain point, sometimes you just kind of got to be like, I believed everything I played, and I know that there's only so much I can do about how this all turns out and how they use what I played. You know, like, you know, I like to be really granular. Like, I like to play a song.
Yeah.
I really like to play a song. And I know I've been fortunate to play with maybe some of the older true session players, maybe a drummer or someone, or who's said as much to me too, that like, wow, I can't believe I got to play a song today. I didn't just play a bunch of loops for somebody. You know, and there's a difference of playing a song than there is obviously playing in Pro Tools on loop record and knowing that someone is going to drink a bunch of coffee and edit this for a month and you're going to forget you were even part of it. And it's like, how much, when do you know, it's like, what room do you have that conversation in, or what room do you just say, okay, that's what this is, and that's good. But it's like a different way of making music, and you kind of have to choose when to speak up, maybe I've found. Like, is a juice worth the squeeze on that one? Kind of.
Well, to speak to that too, that notion of like lending yourself and then whatever the uncertainty of how that might end up. There was a session I was in for a songwriter who wrote a bunch of hits in like the early 2000s and mid 2000s. And there was a record he had written with an artist and produced in the 90s. And there's a track that George Harrison plays on. And they had asked George to play on this track. And I think at the time, George was like very chuffed by this because people wouldn't even really ask George Harrison to play on their music because I think they just thought like, how are we going to ask a Beatle to play on his records? But maybe that's something he would have liked to have done more. But he has a framed letter on his wall from George basically describing how he would like, you know, what he's added. Of course, he's George Harrison, but like this, but, you know, in some level, it's like, if you want to do it, it's also like you want to be George Harrison. And he had this letter that was saying like, you know, I've put this slide on this section of the song. Please, like at all costs, do not put a reverb on it. Put at most a 30 millisecond delay and all these instructions because he knew like the integrity of what he played had to be represented in a certain way for the intention to be communicated. I just loved seeing that and seeing that but also in that it was done in a way that was very kind and earnest, but that he just knew if you wrap this up in a way that's contextually different, it's just not going to be what I meant.
Does that track exist?
Yeah, but the artist's name is escaping me. I'll find that track. Okay. And yeah,
they'll be here all day.
You can find
harass them.
I'll do some
Dylan's going to be actually playing in the next session too in the Big Bill Brunzi, so come for that. I would be remiss as we talk about following your heart and your instincts if we didn't talk about the solo records that you all have. So having heard these guys talk for 40 minutes about what emotionally moves them and what they seek in music, and I'd love to just hear like what your solo statements are about and what those records look like.
Well, the first record I put out, which happened last year, I mean, Jason, you and I have talked about this before, but for me, like I fell into it. I am a person that believes that my growth as a musician is half of my own drive, and the good stuff I actually think comes through me just basically like meditating things into existence and playing the same, 45 seconds of music until it starts to make sense to maybe other things I've done. And so in the beginning, when I was assembling these parts, it didn't really, I had an emotion behind it, but it didn't like mean anything to me at the time. What's cool is that I find that like, even as I'm working on this second one, I think that what's happening or what happened with me in the last one will happen again, which is that I think I know what it finally is about like a year later. And for those of you who don't know, I made a record that's just like one big 20-minute piece. Sorry, like you can't track reverse it, or you can't track advance, or whatever. But anyway, it's cool. But yeah, I got my own perspective on this thing that I made like basically a year after. And it turns out that I like long meditative things. I don't know why. I think it's just who I am. I guess that the quick summary is that like I hope people go follow me through. Like I want people to unplug. And I really think that, I mean, this might sound corny, but I'm being very serious. Like they're little like kind of invitations to just do something else for 20 minutes. And I say that in a way, not like you guys need to do something else for 20 minutes because I don't know what you're doing. But for me, I literally do. Like I am so like this thing shreds me every day. And it is the modern way. Like I think like I wrote this music in a way to like, like I said, I'm realizing after the fact, like I want people to have a little vacation. And that's kind of my philosophy. And that's what I'm going for number 2.
Harrison, you want to go, and then we'll end with the forthcoming Dylan Day?
Yeah. So I have a couple solo albums out. I made one of them when I was like 20. And it's a very angsty collection of songs. And I made another record in my mid-20s. And like I have songs sprinkled out in other projects. And I have a project with my friend Eli Hirsch that's called Attention Bird Utopia. And that's a project where we both write songs and sing on it together. And I mean, I've always just been like fascinated by songwriting and like what you can do with words. And it definitely, for me, is kind of a different part of my brain, or it feels that way to me at least, than maybe just playing guitar or something. They're connected certainly, but my interest when it comes to making music or making my own music is like a focus on words mostly, and of course marrying that to melody. And but yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to say what any of it is about, but I'm just interested in like both mundane and dramatic like features of human existence, and like songs about simple things like, you know, going for a walk to evade some kind of panic, or like just a relationship between two people, or like just things that we all experience and we're all like afflicted by or compelled by. That's like sort of the thing that I guess I return to over and over again.
It's interesting. This is my first, so I figured a lot of stuff out on it. And I know it's not available yet, but I'm kind of already past it in a way, I guess, which I should be. But I guess that's also because I played the music and wrote the music a lot in the maybe year and a half before I recorded it. I recorded it in about 45 minutes because I like the sound of records like that. A lot of my favorite records were made that way, whether it's a field recording or a jazz record. This was like a very, you know, kind of old-fashioned way to do it. Just pick a time and go get it, and wear your Sunday best and go get it. So I prepared a lot for it. I had it to a place where I was already pretty free with the music. It's kind of the opposite of, say, in the more session world where you're part of a lot of music that gets written in the studio and made almost in post-production and made in editing. This was more like I wanted to make a document of something that I already really owned. And so to do that, that asked the question of if I was going to be able to play this music by myself, I had to start kind of playing shows. And the more I played shows, the more it's just very humble shows in LA, like daytime free shows at like a record store called Healing Force of the Universe that I love. I didn't know if you're still, Ryan.
The one time in the last month I'm not wearing this sweatshirt.
Yeah, Ryan was ripping them all week. All Austin Manuel is a sweetheart, and he runs that place. So I guess it came down to, I was thinking about things very big picture, and I was thinking of it as a set of music, almost a little suite of music, in the way that Ryan's record is actually. I mean, mine is broken up of pieces that can be played on their own, of course, and yours is too. But it was recorded as a long form thing, and mine is certainly track lists, but in the same spirit, it was cut in that way. And I just conceived these pieces where they worked in these little origamis I wanted to as forms, but also allowed, maybe as an improviser, the places that I had always wished I would, certain harmonic devices or places or modes, or even just as simple as the mechanics of the instrument, where I always was like, oh, I wish in an ensemble I could get more of this. And so I set the table for myself to have those places when I was playing live. On the record, I tried to keep it very lean, because I wanted to almost make that statement too, of like the 20s, 30s Duke Ellington records, where it's like A, B, like these little perfect things, and you put all the information in the orchestration, or almost the fact that it's so buttoned up is almost a statement itself, like a Carter Family record or something, where everything is just like pinned, because I don't hear a lot of music like that anymore. I think it's really fresh, and it takes a different kind of artistry to pull that off. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speak too much on it's crazy to talk about it before it's out. I will be playing that music tonight upstairs across the street. I just tried to make a record that I wouldn't be ashamed of when I'm older. And I figured that the best way to do that was to just do something incredibly earnest. And so that's what led me to what it is. And it's bruised, and it's out of tune, and there are flaws on it, and I meant every second of it. And it, I believe I played it clear enough and simple enough that I'll never be able to look back and feel like I had any kind of affectation. And I figured that was the best place I could set myself up for a first thing that I was going to share with people that was purely of my own name. And I could always look at it and trust that it was like, had a type of dignity, and that's why I hadn't done anything yet, is because I'd never felt like I could set myself up for that yet.
I love it.
Yeah.
Should come as no surprise that three of the coolest guitarists around are also three of the most thoughtful guitarists around. I can't thank you guys enough for all your insights. This has been awesome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jason, for having us.
All right. Wasn't that great? I hope you loved it. I did, and I have to say I just adored hearing Dylan, Harrison, and Ryan play on Saturday night in the Zold Theater at the Old Town School of Folk Music at our summit. I hope that they come back again and again and again. It was a truly great show. So that is all I'm going to be sharing from the Fretboard Summit for, I don't know, a few weeks. And then we'll be getting back into the mode of sharing some of these incredible workshops and programs that took place during those 3 days in Chicago. Till next time.